Yeah, I'd forgotten about the velour background. That's exciting.
Keep you pepped up.
Yeah. Also, happy International Day of Women and Girls in Science.
I didn't know that. What a great
Yeah,
day.
February the 11th. It started in 2015 by the UN to promote women and girls in STEM.
Oh man, we could have saved last week's story. That would have been a good one. Oh no, we did release it today. So we've released a STEM story on a STEM day.
Perfect.
Hey,
Yeah.
my God, look at that.
I'm mega
We're
away.
better than we think.
You
Yeah,
don't
for
even know
sure.
it.
Um,
Cool. Hi, Vicky.
Hi, Simon.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, welcome. Welcome to She Changed History.
Hello.
And it's Vicky's turn today.
It is. You can sit back and relax. I'm gonna talk at you for a
Amazing.
bit.
What have you got for us today?
We're going right back, so we're going 2,000 years ago.
Wow,
So
this is
not
even
our
pre-Victorian.
pre.
That's-
How dare we? How
I
dare we?
know.
I know I'm going to push you out of that comfort zone. You're going to have to stretch a little bit, but hopefully it'll be a good one. Okay.
Okay.
Got a little intro. She commanded legions, dared to challenge the Roman Empire, and defied expectations at every turn. Her name was Zenobia, and her story is one of ambition and the relentless pursuit of power. From the sands of Palmyra to the glittering courts of Rome, we unravel the life and legend of this extraordinary woman. Join us as we explore the rise and fall of Queen Zenobia, a warrior whose legacy echoes through the ages.
Wicked.
So it's power, it's royalty,
Mhm.
it's transcension, it's all of those words.
And you've even
Lots
got a lovely
of
photo of her as well. That's great.
That is a painting, and sorry, I didn't mean to sound so correct to you. They didn't have photography 2,000 years ago, Simon. Sorry to correct you.
I know. Mm. That's
That sounded
devastating.
really bitchy. I'm sorry. But that,
Simon, they didn't have photography 2,000 years ago.
oh God, for
Don't
God's
be
sake,
silly, please.
Simon.
This is a
You're on a
podcast.
history podcast, Simon. But that is her surveying her empire. So this is a painting of her
Wicked.
allegedly at her peak. It's like The Lion King, where it's like everything the light will touch. It's very much like that, for sure.
Nice.
So lots of sources today, a Britannica article, a really good YouTube video called Zenobia, the Warrior Queen of the Palmyrene Empire. Lots of worldhistory.org articles. They seem to have got loads on this kind of
Mm.
area of history, so that was really helpful. And there was an alternative history.com article as well,
Oh,
which is
cool.
very good.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to learn a lot. I didn't know much about this era. Do you know much about
Not
like
really,
this kind
no.
of okay, so we're in Syria.
Mm.
So Palmyra is a city in modern day Syria. Zenobia was born 240 AD in Palmyra. Palmyra is like a Roman province, is part of the empire.
Mhm.
That therefore makes Zenobia a citizen of Rome. There is a lovely description in one of the articles that says she had flashing coal black eyes, pearly white teeth, dark Middle Eastern skin, and wavy brunette hair, reflecting her part Greek and part Arab lineage. She was born into an Arab tribe, which meant that she was infused with Arabic tribal politics. There's also just a casual little claim that because of her Greek heritage, that could be tracked all the way back to Cleopatra herself.
Wow.
Yeah, with all of this, because it is 2,000 years ago, just a pinch of salt on all those things. I don't know if you're watching Apple Cider Vinegar on Netflix at the minute, but
No,
it's
no.
basically about this girl who made up so much stuff and like really dark stuff. She made up that she had cancer. And now everything I read in the news, I'm like, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? So she claims to be
Okay.
related to Cleopatra.
But we haven't got an official who do you think you are verification of that.
I don't think so. I
No,
haven't
okay.
I haven't gone through the archives.
It'd
Who
be
do you
nice
think you are?
nice to believe though, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool, isn't it? If you're going to have
Yeah.
a heritage, make sure it's Cleopatra.
Yeah.
A really key date in Zenobia's life is 258 AD when she marries Odenathus. Odenathus has a lot of power in the province. They marry and they have at least one son called Valbeathus, and Odenathus has a son from his previous marriage as well. So it's like a blended family
Okay.
situation.
So
He
she's marrying
rules,
into power.
that's it. So he rules this region
Hmm.
and parts that extend over that. So it's like a bit of the Roman Empire. So she's ruling.
Do we know
Um,
like what sort of role she would have had in that? Was she merely a trophy wife, or was she actually getting involved in like, in the action?
she got involved heavy, really
Oh wow.
heavy.
Okay.
And that is the piece of the story that kind of links to how she rose to power, basically.
Awesome. Oh,
So it was very much a team effort. To
hmm.
understand like the power they had, you kind of need to understand a little bit about Palmyra itself. So,
Hmm.
like I said, it's in modern day Syria. So you're talking like the Turkey region, Iraq, Lebanon, around there. It's an oasis, that area, which means that it's got loads of fertile soil, which is amazing. And that's what their economy relies on. It kind of relies on this today. So you're producing off the land. So that's wine, olives, vegetables, fruits, nuts, wool, because your animals can live on the land. And because of where it was positioned, it was a really important trading hub on what they call the Silk Road. Have you
Oh
heard
yeah.
of the Silk Road?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that is 4,000 miles long and it goes through Europe and to Asia. And it was a trade route from about the second century BC to the mid 15th century AD. So a
Mm.
really long time. And the reason it was called the Silk Road is because the trade tended to be in silk and textiles, which were
Hmm.
produced in China, traveled along the way. Palmyra was on this route, and that's where you could pay your taxes. So that's why it was
Oh,
so
okay.
rich. They charged taxes to use the road, and they also let the travelers rest there.
Yeah, like a really key hub along the way.
Yep,
Yeah.
trading post, and because of that, it influenced different types of cultures. The architecture you can see has been influenced by this time. Like you can see Roman architecture that is still there
Hmm.
today, which is really interesting. So you're in power. You're married to someone in power in this hubbub on the Silk Road.
Yeah. She's giving me
Uh,
slight vibes of Ching Shi there. It's like
yeah, I know.
marrying the right person, but also getting involved. So,
Very much
yeah.
in role. So the reason she got involved is because Ordinathus is a bit of a he's a bit of a character in himself.
Oh, God.
He's not like this quiet stoic kind of just sits back and lets he's quite hands-on in his rule.
Bit of a
So
character is what they call the kid at school who sets fire to the library. That's,
that's what we're talking about today.
yeah.
So there was a key event really early on in their marriage, so 227 AD. The Sassanid Persians, which was led by a guy called Shapur the First, who was known as the King of Kings of Iran. He blocked the Silk Road, preventing Romans from accessing their silk. It said in some articles their beloved silk, but I think it was probably more stop them collecting their taxes. I think
Yeah, that's what hurt the most. Yeah.
that's that's what really stung. The Roman emperor at the time was called Valerian. He tried to fight Shapur the First off and tried to fight this army off, and he failed. So Ordinathus took it upon himself to fight him. He was like, "Well, I'm not, you can fail,
Oh,
but I'm
wow.
actually going to
Okay.
get my guys and rally the troops."
Yeah.
Now, crucially, is the word that is stated here. Crucially, this was after he tried to make an alliance with Shapur. So he tried to get Chappelle on side, and then when that didn't work, he was like, "Well, stuff you anyway. I'm going to tell you off to the Roman Emperor, and then we're going to fight for this." You know,
Tell you off to the Roman Emperor.
yeah. He's like, "I'm going to tell on you if you don't
I'm
want to make an
Dobbin.
alliance with, yeah, if you don't want
Yeah.
to make an alliance with me, I'm telling." So that's basically what happened. Um, So he tried to make an alliance, then he fought back.
Hmm.
And this did work. So he successfully pushed Shapur's forces over the Euphrates River, which
Okay.
runs through Syria today. If you Google that river, it is freaking stunning. It is
Mm.
absolutely gorgeous, such a special part of the world. And then what he did then, Ordinathus, which just shows these kind of character aspects, having tried to go around the emperor's back, then said to the emperor, "Oh, you know what? I did you a favor there. I managed to run him out for you. I think I did really well there. Just you owe me in the future. Don't worry about it. Just owe me."
Uh-huh. Yeah. He's sort of already acting not necessarily against the Roman Empire, but maybe not totally adhering to the agreed power structure there. If like the
Yes.
Roman Emperor couldn't get rid of the King of Kings, then you've got to step up, haven't you?
Yeah, hold that thought because it's so important in the future. For his service of shoving off Chappelle, Odenathus was made the governor of the entire eastern part of the Roman Empire. So
Wow.
that's his thank you. Over time, he gained enough power to rule almost independently as Rome,
Hmm.
and that was with Zenobia as queen. She was very active in this growth of this
Okay.
empire and this strategy because she had loads of skills. She was fluent in Greek, Latin, Amharic, Egyptian. Because of all that, and also her claim to heritage of
Hmm.
Cleopatra the Seventh, she had like this interconnectedness kind of
Okay.
network going on. She enjoyed hunting, so she was one of the lads basically. She enjoyed what they called the hunt, and they called that the sport of kings back then.
Hmm.
And that was a really big thing in Persian and Arab lands. It turned out that she'd prefer, rather than being in a carriage, she preferred to be on horseback with the troops, basically. So she would travel with whether it be a horse or a camel.
So, like culturally, she's one of the people. She can blend into all of these different areas, different tribes that she rules over, and she's getting involved with them in a sort of a grittier way.
It creates
And
respect, right?
yeah,
And
definitely.
it creates a reputation. So she got this kind of fame and she walked by foot at the head of the troops as well. So she wasn't
Hmm.
like at the back being paraded through. She was at the helm. She could
Yeah.
also outdrink any of her soldiers. And
That's where it comes from. Okay, that's the
mhm,
power. Yeah.
she was considered better at them than hunting, and
Hmm.
because Ordinathus is quite a character, she also got a reputation for commanding self-control.
Hmm.
She was very poised, very collected, all the things you want in a leader,
Yeah.
I think. So she was very active because she had skills to grow this empire.
Hmm.
Then her husband dies, as with every story I tell. So I don't know why they just come to me and they, oh, then the husband dies.
You gravitate towards them. Yeah.
In 267 AD, um, both Ordinatus and his son were assassinated by his nephew. So this is classic
Oh,
Roman
wow.
Empire stuff where they're
Yeah.
just power struggle, just killing everyone. That's the only answer. The nephew was the only relative who laid claim to the Palmyran throne.
Hmm.
But what the nephew didn't count on was Zenobia.
Hmm.
She rallied her husband's forces, having gained their respect, and quickly squashed this idea of a rebellion. Like the nephew had a go at rebellion, and she was like, nah, mate, not
Okay.
happening.
So
Yep.
all of her behavior up until now has come back to serve her well.
Yep. She's like, I can do this. I want to do this.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you do it, especially after
Also,
you've just
what?
killed.
Yeah, like, what an idiot is the nephew. Surely he saw how badass she was.
I know, but she's a woman. So
Oh, yeah.
I
Sorry.
can take you,
Oh, my
feeble
mistake.
lady.
Yeah.
So this was the son from the first marriage who was assassinated. So Zenobia still has her 10-year-old son,
Okay.
Valborlathus. And the idea is that, like with Matilda, we spoke about, she would look after for her child.
Hmm.
They call that the role of regent. So she took on this. She maintained all her late husband's policies and she did the job. She did all the things you would want a leader to do. She was also very clever because she positioned herself with intellectuals and philosophers and people with high standing to advise her.
Hmm.
So rather than just like the brutest or the loudest or the most extroverted soldiers, she would surround her people who she perceived to have expertise.
Hallmark of the best leaders.
I think so. Just this idea that you don't know everything.
Yeah.
Shock horror.
And being okay with that and accepting that.
Yeah, and pulling
Hmm.
on people. Yeah.
Yeah.
I write here that she's more like deputizing than caretaking because she is doing
Hmm.
it. She's doing everything. She pushed and she wanted progress. And by progress, I mean power.
Hmm.
She wanted more, which I think, again, was taught to her by her husband. That's exactly what he wanted. On top of all that, at this time, it's a really key time in the Roman Empire. She got damn lucky in terms of timing. So, this is the part of the Roman Empire which is called the crisis of the third century. Have you heard that?
Not heard that, no. But
Do you want to learn about that?
no, you're right.
I'm going to tell you about it anyway.
Yeah, okay.
So, this is also known as the Imperial Crisis, which is when the Roman Empire basically split into three different entities. It was just a power struggle of the masses. So, power was fractured, and it was a time where politics became more influenced by the military rather than lineage. People wouldn't necessarily adhere to the policies, and emperors succeeded one another really quickly. So
Okay.
within 50 years, they had 26 emperors.
Wow.
Yeah, in just a really short
Okay.
50-year period.
Just like the Tory
Um,
party.
yeah, but like worse. We thought that was bad. What are we on? 4 in 4 years or something? 4 in 5 years. Like
Yeah. Wow. 26 and 50.
it's a lot. It's
Mm.
so much. And because of that, obviously everything was unstable, is the
Hmm.
politics phrase, isn't it? There was loads of inflation, like today, lots of economic depression, like today. This caused devaluation of the currency, like today.
Hmm.
This was on the back of a plague, like
Oh
today.
my word. So
Um,
everything goes in cycles.
I know, and I was like, when I was reading it, I was like, oh no.
Mm.
Oh dear. Because of this, it demanded so much attention in the epicenter of the empire, right? So
Mm.
all the armies went there because of all this invasion. So someone would be on the
I
throne,
see.
you need to protect that person, then they'd fall down, then you need, and it was just
Yeah.
everyone was focusing on this power struggle, which also meant that the agricultural industry suffered because you didn't
Mm.
have people working on the land because they were all trying to keep the peace.
I see. And I guess that left a bit of a vacuum then for the more distant parts of the empire to capitalize on something.
Yes, and she was under the radar and began to make changes. She had inherited her husband's land and she thought, okay, I want to expand my reach throughout the Med. And she did this in a few ways. A lot of them were bloody, as you would expect.
Hmm.
The probably the biggest one was Egypt. So
Okay.
in 269, she made a guy called Sabdas her general, and she sent him and his army, which was the size of 70,000 troops. 70,000. That is the size of Peckham, I have found out. That is a huge amount of people.
The Great Peckham Army of 269. Yeah.
um, so they all marched along south, along the coastline, ironically to the land of her ancestor, Cleopatra, and into Roman Egypt to claim Egypt as their own. Though they were initially successful, they were then driven out by Roman forces. So it wasn't necessarily an easy battle, quite a bloody battle. Just to give you an idea of what these battles were like back then, we're talking bronze helmets, we're talking breastplates, very gladiatory.
Fabulous.
If you were rich, you could then afford like that chain mail kind of
Hmm.
thing that you had going on. You would carry a semi-cylinder shield, so
Okay.
like a quite a rounded one, and something called a pilum, which is a 4 foot shaft with a 2 foot shank and a tapered point.
Wow.
You could throw these about 100 feet, so quite deadly. Like it was like a
One I couldn't, but someone could. Yeah.
someone could, yeah. This pilum is such a big part of weaponry back then, and it then lasted for about 5 centuries. So it was really
Wow.
everyone had one.
Mhm.
Then Zenobia counterattacks again. She then decimates the Roman army, and Egypt fell under her control. Having claimed Egypt, Zenobia was in a position of strength, but she had to be really careful not to conflict too much with Rome
Mhm.
because they are technically in charge. What she did do is she claimed that a little bit like her husband had done in the past, what she was saying to the emperor. So there was a Syrian Timagenes who started a revolt against Roman rule while the Roman governor was away on campaign.
Mhm.
Therefore, Zenobia marched on Egypt could have been explained as saying, I'm protecting you of this Timagenes threat. I'm doing it for the good of the empire. But there's another story that she sent Timagenes to start causing havoc. So
Oh,
she
it's like
planted him.
one of the first false flag operations.
Yeah, that's it, definitely. And to show that she wasn't making a fuss, she also allowed the grain ships to sail as usual from Egypt to Rome. So she was like, look, business as usual, guys.
Oh
Don't
yeah.
worry, I'm not here to cause a fuss.
No, 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 no.
I was just trying to calm the tension in Egypt, and I just wanted to make sure that Egypt fell in line to you, Emperor. Like, I just
Oh,
wanted to
okay.
make sure that they were well behaved. So at this point, you've got an emperor called Aurelian, and that's what she said to him, basically.
Hmm. Did he fall for that?
He did for the time being. There's only so many times I think you can use that line.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, I'm just coming to Rome to make sure everyone's being nice to you. That's fine.
Absolutely. I know, she's sneaky, sneaky,
I
sneaky.
love it. Yeah.
So she keeps growing her empire basically, but she uses different tactics. So, for example, with Levant, which is a region that today is made up of Jordan, Syria, Israel, Lebanon, she actually did diplomatic negotiations with them rather than full on
Okay.
bloodshed.
So
I,
it's not exclusively a military sort of walking
I
over them
mean,
and stealing it.
so what she did with Levin is basically say, "I will protect you. Look, it's a really unstable time. There's lots of bloodshed. I will protect you with my massive army of 70,000 people, my Peckham army,
Yeah. The
and
sons of Peckham,
then."
you know.
Massive. And then they fell under her rule. I don't know what would happen if Levin said, actually, Queen Zenobia, Queen,
Mhm.
I'm fine. Thank you. I'm not sure that would have flown,
I'd
but
imagine it's a sort of it's an offer you can't refuse. It's giving me
absolutely.
Godfather vibes.
Just another example of how she gained more land was she was able to capture the Asia Minor, East Turkey, and she
Okay.
basically stormed in. The Empire were too busy faffing about, doing their own thing, trying to work out who's
Mhm.
in charge. She was able to capture the Asia Minor and put down a number of loyalist Roman legions. So no one was stopping her really from the Roman side because she was
Okay.
very clever.
Yeah.
Um,
She must have been
and
carrying so much sort of respect and admiration.
we know that this was on that particular emperor's radar, but he just couldn't do anything about it. Like time
Yeah.
wasn't on his side. He was mishandling different revolts. He didn't have the resource
Yeah.
to do it.
Whereas she now,
Um,
she's what, 12 years in now to being queen. Some with her husband, some without.
that's it. She's also really clever because she toes so close to the line. So even when she took over Asia Minor, she put down these loyalists in there to represent the Roman Empire.
I see.
And so they couldn't really tell her off. They were
Yeah.
like, just that kid in school who like goes so close to doing something wrong, but then technically, no, miss, it doesn't quite say that. You know what I mean? So technically she had done nothing wrong to open up that
Hmm.
conflict. Then enter Aurelian, who is, as emperor, when he becomes in charge, has Zenobia right on his radar. He found her very audacious. Zenobia
I should
is,
say.
yeah, so she's coining coins. Like I said, she's doing the ruling really hands on. And oh, she did this really awkward thing. And like I said, it's not wrong, it's just naughty. Is
Mm.
that she had these coins minted with her son's one side, because remember, she's caretaker. So her son's face on one side and Aurelian's face on the other side. But Aurelian was on the back of the coin, not the front of the coin, which was very disrespectful.
Yeah, I'd imagine that. 'Cause I mean, I haven't met many Roman emperors in my life, but I think they're probably quite precious about their status and their power, and that feels
Uh,
like a real undermining, an irksome
re
move.
but again, not enough to do, not
Yeah.
enough to cause
Oh,
outright war.
oh, sorry, did I put you on the back? Oh, I didn't realize coins had a back. Oh, sorry about that.
So it's very much like that. She also adopted imperial titles for
Mm.
herself and her son. So her son was called Augustus, and she was the Augusta, which was only then used for the royal family of Rome.
Okay.
So again,
Yeah.
that's like me saying, "Oh, I'm Princess of Wales," and then Catherine being totally fine
Yeah.
with that. You know what I mean?
She would not be. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I would be beheaded immediately. Yeah, for
Furious.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is really changing the dynamic, but Palmyra is no longer like a trusted outpost of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, she's balancing this tightrope so much because she's also conducting trade agreements, which are in benefit to the Roman Empire. Like they
Mm,
do benefit from it, but she doesn't consult them. She's just
mm,
like, no, I just want this trade agreement in place. I want to negotiate this territory. She's just so independent. She just does it,
yeah.
and it's working because she's growing, and yeah, so she's very selective with who she tells what to.
Hmm.
By 271 AD, she ruled over an empire which stretched from modern day Iraq through to Turkey and down to Egypt. So a huge amount,
Wow.
much bigger than
Yeah.
it was with her husband. When Aurelian became emperor, he, like I said, took notice of what she was doing and just said, this is getting out of hand, really.
Hmm.
This has gone on for
Fair.
too long. Aurelian himself was a military man, so he'd risen through the ranks. He was very much soldier focused, which meant he was
Hmm.
primal. He was not scared of a fight. When he assumed rule, he had to also defeat a load of different tribes to get rule. So he had to defeat the Vandals, the Alemanni, and the Goths. But by 272, so that took time. By 272, he's ready. He's ready to take on Zenobia.
He's going against her. He wants to assert
Yeah.
his
So she's
sovereignty
had two
again.
years of clean running, basically.
Yeah.
2 years of causing havoc, running under the radar, building what she wants to build. And he launched what is like a military campaign. He didn't even really tell her what he was planning to do. So there's no letter of explanation, but equally none of Zenobia to him either. They had no communication. It was just out of the blue completely. So he marched on the Palmyrene Empire with his entire army.
Wow.
Later, however, letters were found between the two of them where Aurelian is seen as reasonable and Zenobia is seen as arrogant and hoity, which is a word that is coming
Mighty.
across a lot in Our Ladies. But worldhistory.org notes that these are probably fabrications. So he probably made
Hmm.
these up to say, I was very reasonable.
Of course, yeah.
I really tried with this woman and
Yeah.
she just wouldn't let me in.
She was
Um,
hysterical.
Yes, basically. So off Aurelian goes to find her. He destroys every city that is loyal to Zenobia, including the Levant area.
Wow.
He fought off any attacks and just marched on. So the quick side story is Aurelian comes to Tyana, which is a city in modern day East Turkey. This was the home of the famous philosopher Apollonius of Tyana, who Aurelian really admired. Apparently, this philosopher came to him in a dream and counseled him to be merciful if he wished to obtain victory. The philosopher is like, you should spare the cities. And
How did
so
that
that's
work
what,
out?
well, that's what happened. So
Oh,
Aurelian did
wow.
do that. This dream came true so that the cities fell before he even got to them. So they would
Hmm.
surrender before he even arrived at the gates.
Okay.
The reason they fell is because he told everyone about this dream
Hmm.
and like sent messages on. Was like, I've had a dream that if you fall down, I won't kill you. And obviously they're like, well, I don't want to die. So they'll just like surrender. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a cunning little tactic, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, like everything in this story, it's deduced from the evidence
Yeah.
that we have
But I
today.
guess it does rely on him having already destroyed and killed loads of people, so that there's some authenticity behind the threat.
We love a bit of cause and effect. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So he's en route to Zenobia. He's pushed and pushed and pushed. He's not going down without a fight. And Zenobia obviously gets wind of this because messages come, all her cities have fallen. So she rallies her armies. And then what happens is the Battle of Imme. Immae in 272. This is bloody. This is huge. So two massive armies. This is for the eastern part of the Roman Empire. The stakes are high.
Hmm.
You've got a woman in charge. It couldn't be any more tense as a
Hmm.
battle. In this battle, Zenobia falls. The Palmyrines were defeated. The way that Aurelian won was by faking retreat, and so like they fell back. And then when the Palmyra foresters, when they begin to tire and they were like, oh, we've seen them off, they're retreating. When they started to head back, Aurelian then did a pincer formation. and then
Okay.
came round the backside. So they split and then came back round. Quite naughty tactics, really, by thinking you're going to
Very,
win
very
properly.
naughty
Very
tactics.
naughty tactics.
I'm just trying to imagine the scale of this and like the tens of thousands of soldiers in these formations. And you said it was pre-photography, it's pre-radio,
Mm.
it's pre-anything, It's this is
I think it's just lots of yelling and lots of brass on brass and
it's immense, isn't it?
metal and blood and
Yeah.
yeah, like first aid isn't there. I think
And
it's
it just
quite,
must have been savage.
yes, great word, savage, 100%. Zenobia herself and her generals Abadas, they flee to Emesa, which is now called Homs in Syria. That's
Oh
modern
yeah.
day Homs. And there she's got more men and she's also got more armory, money,
Hmm.
resources in general. The Aurelian isn't having it, so the armies meet again outside of Emesa. So they go again. So it's like another battle, all
Oh,
this
flipping out.
bloodshed. Yeah, absolutely. But it's because she's relentless. She could have fallen because I guess she's thinking, I've worked so hard for this, and this is what my husband
Yeah.
wanted, and this is what, and I'm good at it as well.
Hmm.
That's another thing. It's a power struggle. Again, or the Romans win, Aurelian sides win, using precisely the same tactic. So they hadn't learned from the previous time. So they
Fool
pretend
me
to
once.
retreat, and then they turn around and they're like, ha, got you. And then they go again. That meant that Aurelian then took the city of Misa and also raided the rest of their resources as well. So
Okay.
raided the treasury and everything. So he's gaining from all sides, people,
Yeah.
power, money, the whole shebang.
This is a
Zenobia
real
then,
show of power, isn't it?
oh yeah, and it's a show of putting someone in their box again.
Yeah.
Like,
Back in your
absolutely.
place.
Yeah. Zenobia flees again.
Oh
So
wow, she gets away.
she's sneaky, sneaky. This time she goes to Palmyra itself. So her namesake, the
Hmm.
place, the Holy Grail, if you like, which is very poetic as a final standoff battle,
Hmm.
isn't it? It's
Yeah.
very. She was in the city walls and made all the preparations she could. She found reinforcements, again, pulling on all that power and all that
Hmm.
influence that she's built, all that camaraderie with the troops, and finding aid. And it sounds like she knew what was coming and did get like a little bit sentimental. She made a declaration, according to historian Edward Gibbon, that the last minute of her reign should be the same as her life was.
Hmm.
So, like the same attitude, forte, resilience.
Yeah.
Politicians do get a bit sentimental, don't they?
Oh, definitely.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be a great movie. Can you imagine this
Mm.
scene in the movie where she's like giving this really empowering speech to her troops, knowing
Hmm.
that the end's probably up? Put that in your gladiator movie. That's what I want to happen.
Even early on, you said that she was admired for always keeping her composure. And it sounds
Hmm.
like she's keeping that right to the end.
Very stoic,
But
right?
stoic, yeah, not sort of faltering under the
Hmm.
pressure.
Yeah, for sure. In the very dramatic movie Hollywood style, Aurelian comes over the hills and besieges Palmyra. Zenobia runs off with her son on camelback, hoping to reach Persia. But she then is captured at the river and apparently was brought back to Aurelian tied in chains. When she gets to Aurelian, he then sends her to Rome. There's a few different accounts of what happens after this quite dramatic capture. One is that she didn't even make it to Rome. So, one story is that both her and her son drowned on the way to Rome. But the most probable story would be that when she was put on trial in Rome and acquitted, because that tends to be what happens in these situations,
Mhm.
she would then spend the rest of her life married to an upper class Roman because, and you're probably like, oh, does this normally happen? Aurelian was probably embarrassed that a woman had caused him so much trouble because there
Yeah,
was three battles there I've just taken you through and vast amount of traveling. Like
vast
she was,
amount. I mean, these are massive distances here.
yeah, she was giving him the proper runaround. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he probably wanted to downplay her significance
Okay.
rather than make a bit of a show of her.
Mm.
Like Anne Boleyn was very much made a show of, wasn't she? Her death was very
Yeah.
like pantomimey, while
Hmm.
this is like just put her under the carpet.
Yeah. Really downplay. what problem it actually was, and it's like, oh, we've
Yeah.
just gone
And
together,
how
but
tired I am.
yeah.
You know. There is a famous tale of her being paraded through the streets of Rome in golden chains, which has been depicted in
Hmm.
different paintings and sculptures. But again, it is likely a fantasy kind of
Yeah.
fabrication. Like, look at this silly woman kind of thing.
Hmm.
But regardless of whatever her fate was, Zenobia is probably one of the most famous women of that time. And I
Hmm.
think despite her being defeated, it shows what a warrior she was, how strategic she was. One of the terms in the articles I read was a shrewd ruler, which I really
Yeah.
agreed. She was more than what people thought women were at that time.
Oh, way beyond. Yeah.
I've just put a little point at the end here. So, a lot of the story, because it is nearly 2000 years old, very much depends on what sources you're looking at and what websites you're looking at. I very much relied on worldhistory.org today to
Hmm.
try and get a consistent narrative. But the point of this story isn't really that. The point of the story is that women have always been there. When
Hmm.
you think of the Roman Empire, they were there. They were doing what the men were doing. They were ruling, they were fighting, seizing, they did diplomacy. They have
Mm.
been there doing it all. We are just taught to remember women for their beauty, which is
Hmm.
like Cleopatra right at the top of the story. And that's not what we remember the men for. So if you think about Roman men, I imagine you're thinking Julius Caesar. You're thinking of men of their power and you're thinking of women of their beauty.
Yeah.
Whilst Queen Zenobia is beauty, absolutely, but power and more.
Mm.
So that's why I wanted to cover her.
That's awesome.
She's a firecracker.
Yeah. Yeah, just like strength and ambition. And the way that she manages to rally all these people behind her.
Yep.
Like she must have had great political skill.
And the
Just had
strength
the whole package.
and the stoicism and the kind of,
Yeah.
you need all those things to rule and gain that quickly. So
Hmm.
um the Palmyra Empire itself under her rule was like 3 years. Like it wasn't long,
Yeah.
but so much happened in that 3 years. Like for context, King Charles has been on the throne like 2.5 years.
Hmm.
Like it's that blip, to me, like the Queen died yesterday. You know what I mean? Like it's such a
Totally. Yeah.
short blip in history.
Yeah.
What she achieved in that short amount of time with the technologies back then, with
Mm.
the resources back then, with the turmoil back then,
Mm.
she saw her opportunity and she went for it. And more of that, please. That'd be great.
I enjoyed that enormously. Thank you. It was nice to get out of Victorian England.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Very
was. Yeah.
deserty, lots of sands, and
Yeah. It
yeah, for sure.
was a lot of fun.
And she's not the only woman of the Roman Empire either. That's the thing. There's loads of warrior women who we could cover, and because of one thing
Mm.
or another, just got completely written out of history. But she's one of many. I think that's important to note as well.
Okay, well, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed that, please like, comment, subscribe. Tell your friends about us.
We'd like that.
We would like that.
Yeah, very much.
Okay, thanks, folks. Catch you next time.
Thank you. See you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.